I'll start the recording.
Bill DeVay. Came from Bill DeVay,
Oh, okay.
his estate. Yeah, he had promised the museum that long time ago. It's just taken a while to get it. We got it about 6 or 8 months ago. Well, no, maybe more, maybe 10 months ago. In fact, a few sessions back, well, quite a few sessions back, I showed the curve tracer with a pentode and with a triode on it, showing the different curves.
Oh, nice.
It's on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
It's on YouTube.
And talked about some of the differences between the triode and the pentode. And you just take the screen and plug it into the plate. No, 12AU7 or 6AU7 also turns into a triode nicely. Looks the same as a 6C4 almost.
See, I think I've got two pieces of tech equipment. I've got a, what is that? I've got a 2335 scope, small one. And then I've got a constant amplitude generator that I think I'm going to put on the bench when I reconfigure it next month.
Mm-hmm.
I've got B&K up here now. It's a nice unit. It does a fair job, but the signal it puts out is, not the prettiest thing in the world. What comes out of Tektronix is absolutely perfect and doesn't change amplitude with frequency.
So does this have the amplitude correction at the end of the cable? I can't remember.
I honestly don't know, and I may not
Okay.
even have the cable for it. This came out of the whole time collection.
Oh, okay. I'd have to look it up, but you do have to terminate the thing. Otherwise you can get resonances in the cable.
And so yeah, it's got to have a proper load.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if it needs one, we'll make one or acquire one.
50 ohms and a 50 ohm cable.
Enough.
And then you can go from there.
So you just have a 50 ohm termination on it then? But
Yeah.
then it's like on a T, and then you can take it out from there.
No, that's a feed through feed, 50 ohm.
So one of these things.
That's an attenuator.
You're right. It even says so. Yeah, I think I've got two of them. And you're right, they're both attenuators. Well, that won't work.
Okay.
They're Tektronix.
Let me look around here.
I wonder if you could make your own, Blake, where you just go and have a little Joe box that you come into, and you just put a 50 ohm resistor to the ground off the feed.
That sounds too simple for Tektronix.
They look like this. This one actually happens to be a 50 ohm block. But anyway,
Okay.
So you connect to your cable, that gives you your 50 ohm load, and now you can go
Okay.
out high impedance.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So at least your cable to the termination is clean.
That'll be
You can
clean.
go out
And
high impedance.
that isolates what's coming out of the back end then.
Mm.
Nice. I'll have to keep an eye out for one of those. Wonder if I could build it into the unit. Just open the case and
Blake, how about this one right here? Can you see it?
I see it.
Okay, I'll save that for you.
You are awesome, sir.
Well, that was too easy.
I tossed it on my bench and it bounced into the garbage can. I'll dig through the garbage later. So do you want to talk about isolation transformers?
Yes.
There was a lot of like inquiries on the forums about it. So
Yeah, I wish there was more people here. So anyway, isolation transformer is really pretty handy, useful safety device. It allows you to make measurements you normally couldn't make. Basically, the isolation transformer, you got neutral, you got hot, which is wiggling around, which is going in. And in the case of you don't know which way it is, you can have a hot chassis up here wiggling around if you don't know your polarity. So anyway, that goes into a winding, and then the output winding, it has the same signal on there, but it's going both ways. Bottom and top are moving. They're free to move up and down DC wise because they're not hooked to the line. They're only coupled magnetically. Okay. So now you got a hot chassis and you want to tie your oscilloscope ground or your signal generator ground to the chassis. Now that hangs still and just the other side moves. Or you grab this one and that side moves. Or if you want to do crazy things, you can bias the thing DC for some reason. In the case of switching power supplies, you got line voltage out here that comes out, rectifies, it goes into a bulk cap. Well, that bulk cap's got DC on it, but the bottom side is well below ground as far as the AC input goes, because you've rectified it. And so now you can isolate that by allowing that whole front end of that power supply to move up and down. And so you can grab the negative rail, and pull it up to ground where your oscilloscope is at.
I wanted to hear this.
Okay. So switching power supplies, they've got PFC converters in it. And so you've got all this front end business. And when you're trying to troubleshoot it, it's hard to get an oscilloscope in because there's no ground reference here. It's below line and above line as far as what's across that major bulk cap that you're then feeding the switcher for. And you're trying to look at switcher waveforms and stuff like that. So what you do is you just ground that negative lead, and now you can look at everything in that switcher. That was probably too fast.
But you do all of that isolated from the mains.
Right. You can even, if for some reason you wanted to ground B plus, you can do that. Bring it to ground. Now everything's referenced negatively. I guess one thing you might think of is, okay, I want to look at the B plus, ground that with my scope and look at the plate of the tube. Now I'm just looking at what's across the transformer. I don't have that DC offset because I've made the B plus my reference at ground.
So for your oscilloscope, you want to capacity couple all those measurements, right? So
Nope. I'm talking DC connected, no caps. The minute you connect the ground lead or your oscilloscope to anything in that circuit, it's now ground. It's moved the rest of the circuit to match what you connected the ground to. So if I hook to B plus on the hot side of the output transformer, I can then hook my ground there, and then I hook my signal lead then to the plate of the tube or on the other side of the output winding. So I don't have to AC couple it to see it. Because typically to get any clean signal, looking for noise and stuff, you need to crank the gain up. And when you're in DC mode, that B plus saturates the front end of the oscilloscope. And so you can't see the small AC. Now you can AC couple it, but now you're AC coupling that plus the B plus that's going into the transformer. So you're not actually seeing the noise or whatever that the tubes actually, or the amplifier is actually making, because you've got that B plus being modulated to some extent too.
So are you saying that the B plus can be so slow a noise that you really don't capture it then on the oscilloscope, or the frequencies are different on it, or?
No, you capture it. It's just that if you're looking for noise in the audio, you've got a lot of DC on top of the signal you want to look at. In other words, you might have 200 volts on the plate, but you want to see a volt
Right.
of signal. And if you DC connect that, your front end of the oscilloscope is probably saturated.
Right.
But if you connected the ground to the B plus, now you're just looking what's across that transformer.
Hmm.
Of course, if you got enough gain, you can look at the secondary. And you don't have to worry about all that garbage. A lot of this is just, you can do this now. You've got the device floating around on a floating AC.
Mm-hmm.
So you
With
can
the-
push that thing around however you want.
Because of the isolation transformer.
Right. Okay, you're not purely isolated because you can have some noise online that's going to go across, and there is capacitively coupling there. And so you will have some AC current that's common mode there. And so if you tie one to ground, you'll get a little bit of current there. Or if you tie your finger there. But it's kind of like a capacitor that you might see from line to chassis as far as the current that it would present. Pretty minimal, not going to kill you.
It's almost negligible.
Any other questions?
So I understand it. It'll still bite you though, right? I mean, even if you're on an isolated transformer, you still got that amount of volts, right?
You're not going to get bit with the chassis.
Oh,
Okay. You're not going to be bit by putting your finger anywhere in one place. The problem is you got to put your finger between two places
two places. Okay.
where you know,
Don't
got
hold
AC
it by
going in
on the
there.
chassis.
You still have AC going in there. It's just that, oh, I can touch that and there's no problem. I can touch that, there's no problem. Because once you touch here, this quits moving and it all moves up here. Because you're capacitively coupling it to ground. Or you're hooking a scope to one lead and that quits moving. So the other lead moves twice as much.
So is that what's happening when they ground the chassis with the scope, with your oscilloscope? You ground your lead and touch the other side at the same time? Is that why you can burn out a scope that way? Explain the worst scenario.
Well, a hot chassis and you hook the ground without the isolation transformer.
Okay.
The scope is grounded. Typically they're 3-wire.
Okay.
And your test instrumentation should be 3-wire, all of it, signal generators, everything. And of course, they're not all that way, but you don't want any of the test instrumentation hooked to the isolation transformer. You want to isolate what you're looking at. Although what you're looking at might be a test instrument you're trying to fix, okay? So the device under test is the only thing you want hooked up to the isolation transformer. Okay. A hot chassis without an isolation transformer, and you hook a ground lead from oscilloscope probe. I've seen it. And then turn that radio on. That cord, that oscilloscope cord, goes to about 3/4 of an inch in diameter, emitting smoke like a son of a bitch. I saw this happen at Tektronix by an engineer. Not me. Not me. I won't admit to it, but my buddy Dick next door, the bench next door, he did it. Not, you know, he just wasn't thinking about it. I'm going to have to grab this, so you guys go ahead.
You guys, the picnic is coming up July 24th, and Arlene's Cuisine is going to be there with her food truck. What do you guys think of the mix for hamburger, hot dogs, and maybe sausage?
I don't want mine mixed. I'll take a hamburger.
Well, what we've done is we've bought 100 meals, and traditionally we don't use that many. And it's a lot easier for us just to buy it, and then what we don't use, people are going to take home. So I was thinking maybe go like 75 hamburgers and 25 hot dogs so that everyone can have a hamburger, and then for seconds they can get a hot dog.
I think that's sound thinking, because I know I've been the same way, and we've had stuff left over. Go over and get a hot dog or a sausage and a napkin and just gnaw on it. So I think that's a good idea, Pat.
So do you want to do 50-50 hamburger, 50 hot dogs, or 75-25? I was thinking
No,
70.
I think your 75-25 is probably about right. I think the majority of people like hamburgers.
Okay. The other thing we have to get going is we're gonna have to get a kind of a sign up sheet, because she is only bringing hamburger, hot dogs with all the trimmings. So she's not gonna supply the pop or drinks unless we want her to, but that's an extra $100.
You
Seems like
have
we-
coolers, right?
Yeah, I would say if somebody's got a cooler, I'll fill it with water, bottled water.
Yeah. I don't
Okay,
have a
well,
big-
I thought we'd have a sign up sheet like we did 2 years ago, where, A through H brings this, and I through whatever brings this, and the rest, brings something else. It's usually broken up to like chips and pops, and then sides, and then desserts. So we have the threefold, grouping.
You know what might work better, Pat? And just a suggestion is have a list of things that we typically want, and that might include dessert 1, dessert 2, dessert 3, dessert 4, and let people sign up for what they want. I'm the kind of person that'll hang out to the end and sign up for something that nobody else wanted to bring. But if you open it up, it could be that the person who signed up for dessert really wants to bring deviled eggs or whatnot, so you let them bring their specialties. But I would just provide a list of things that we typically get. Some of them can be specific, and some of them can be a little bit more vague, like chips, desserts, salad. But you might, I don't know, we might have other specifics, like somebody needs to bring dark colored soda and clear soda. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
Well, how about I send a list out and let people add to what they want to put on it? Like, somebody brings potato salad, like your name and what you're going to bring.
Yeah.
But then what you're saying to get it started is to have a list of need things, like we need potato salad, we need deviled eggs, we need barbecue potato chips, we need waters, and then just go on from there. And then if all those get filled up, then other people can chime and says, oh, I want to bring lemon bars.
Yeah, that'd be fine. And then there'll be people like me who hang out to the end and say, well, nobody signed up for barbecue chips. I better go bring some barbecue chips. And oh, look, nobody signed up for potato salad. I better grab some of that too. I'll sign up at the end so you make sure you're going to get it. But I'm happy to do that.
Yeah,
Well,
that's a great
you'd have to find out how many people's initials of their last name fall into the group.
Yeah, but I think I kind of agree now with Blake, if that you're locked into A through I, and then that's dessert, and you want to bring deviled eggs. I mean, I don't think we should limit it.
What if there's no H or I last names?
Well, I think what we're saying is let's not categorize it by names. Let's open it up and say, these are our needs. Who wants to bring what?
Why not just let them bring what they want to bring, and whatever doesn't show up, doesn't show up,
Because I don't want 15 bags of barbecue chips.
Or corn chips.
Well, you need at least two because you got two hands, you know, you gotta have a whole bag of chips for each hand.
Yeah,
Well, I got a
We've
bag in
got-
one hand and chips in the other. I'm good.
Yeah.
We've got plenty of time, so I would just ask people to start signing up and see how it goes.
Yeah, it would be kind of nice if people could use like words, kind of, what was that? You know, where we share the document so that everyone can update it. And it's online, but I don't know if that might confuse people.
Hmm.
You know, like we put the document on SharePoint or something like that, and that way everyone can see it and do live updates to it.
is that too complicated for many of us?
I'm afraid it might be.
I'd just say get it going, and we do have some time, so just get it going. You send out an email and then, you know, set a list of what the groups are, and then you'll get a response, I'm sure.
Okay, well, there's a limited number of you guys here, so I'll just start writing stuff down. I got barbecue potato chips, chips,
So
potato salad.
Blake's gonna be happy.
Yeah, I'll be happy if there's barbecue chips, but
He'll get
Me too.
chips and a hamburger and a water.
Okay, I'll say water, pop. You guys have any other suggestions? I mean, these
We
are
need
the
the
staples.
salads,
yeah,
You need
potato
the
salad, macaroni
relish.
salad.
relish trays, green salads,
salad.
potato salads. Those are your side, some kind of side dish.
There's always ramen.
And dessert.
Dry or otherwise.
What
If
kind
you
of
don't-
desserts?
Actually, dry is good in salads.
It is.
If you cook it and leave it out long enough, it dries out anyway.
I found that out the other day. Somebody came to visit just as I was making some. I went in about 20 minutes later, stuck my fork in it. It all came out of the container in one large lump. It
If you
suddenly
leave it
wasn't
overnight, the
anymore.
noodles will dry to the side of the pan.
Yeah.
That was years ago, 30 years ago, I think, when I tried that. I moved on from ramen.
Okay, what about dessert? I'm gonna put down cookies and I like brownies. So do you guys have any other suggestions? Because that's kind of fingery food for a picnic.
Lemon
Pies.
bars.
What?
Lemon bars.
Ooh, I like those.
Pies, cake.
Pie, cake. Yeah.
The only trouble I think with pie and cake is, you know how cookies and brownies and lemon bars, you can kind of pick one up and eat it on the fly, but okay, pies and cakes.
Well,
need a
cupcake, you
utensils,
can
you
go
mean.
cupcakes
Yeah.
too.
Cupcake. Strudel. You can cut that off in slices.
Yep, there's all those tray, pastries.
Oh yeah, cheeses and shrimp. Yeah, shrimp tray would be really nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe a little crab.
Yeah, I would bring ice bowls.
Christian, what was that? A what?
Well, he was talking seafood, and I'd say you got to lay them on ice bowls if you're going to have all the
Oh,
shrimp and
That's right.
crab
And it needs to be shaved ice, not crushed ice.
and lox. I like cream cheese bagel and lox is good.
Boy, a bunch of dreamers.
Make sure you don't forget the capers.
I figured this group out a long time ago when I created the buckboard. I'm not thinking we're going to see any shrimp or any lox.
all right. I'll cross the shrimp tray out. I'll just put cheese tray, meat tray.
Jar of pickles. Maybe something
Yeah.
like that. Pickles, olives, the condiment relishes. Relish
It needs
tray.
to be black olives so little kids can put 5 on their hand, 1 on each finger.
Gotcha.
But isn't she supplying the condiments and the?
Yes.
So that
she's
she's
keeping-
supplying it.
Yeah, she's including all that. So it's gonna be mayo, ketchup, lettuce, all the stuff on the burgers. In fact, she even said she
Exactly.
was
So
gonna
we don't
bring
need it. We don't need any of
Bacon.
that stuff. Even bacon, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so we don't need any of that, so.
Oh, yeah, but you know, like a relish tray. How's that? A relish tray?
Relish tray,
Yeah, vegetables. I like vegetables. Lots of fresh vegetables.
Broccoli.
Veggie and cheese trays are not terribly expensive.
Fruit trays,
Fruit
fruit
tray.
bowls, salads, watermelon, cantaloupe, bananas, oranges.
And are we still supposed to pre-register for this thing?
Well, that was a suggestion that someone did, is to kind of make it so that we have one place to look and then it would send reminders. And yeah, I think if I looked at that, I think we got like 15 people that signed up, including family members. So we're obviously not going to judge it. We bought 100 meals regardless, because that's what we worked out with Arlene.
So it's hamburgers and hot dogs for a week, Pat.
Well, if just you and me show up, yeah, you bet. It'd be a couple weeks.
Well,
we got 14 people here. Is everybody gonna show up? That's here?
we'll get there early and eat all day.
Well,
If the Datsun makes it, I'll be there.
Oh, you're gonna bring the Datsun?
I am. I'm gonna drive the Datsun out.
Oh,
Unless it's
nice.
106 degrees, then I'm not driving it out.
What is the date on this thing?
24th July.
Yeah, okay.
right, but we're still having a Zoom meeting on the 10th. The second Saturday is still going to be the Zoom meeting. So we'll have a business portion, and then we'll have the summer picnic radio swap meet on the 24th.
We still need a tech talk, so anybody wants to volunteer for a tech talk on the 10th, let me know.
Ooh, Bruce is back.
Yeah, the buckboard came up and I don't know, that I think was a good thing for collectors. Anyway, I'm gonna have to maybe
You ever-
donate some transistor to Blake.
Oh, cool. I'll put them on there.
Yeah, even for free. You know, get it where they need it, you know, get who.
Yeah. Put 'em up there.
Anyway,
That's-
Bruce,
You
what are
guys-
those?
These are military version 2N404s.
Oh, 2 and 404s. Okay.
Oh, nice.
There's only 100 in this package, but there's several packages.
we can package many to a bag.
I could use
Yeah.
like 10 of them.
I could
Just
use
in
a
case.
1,000 of them.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you guys know how the buckboard came to be?
How'd that happen?
It happened over a lunch at the Wichita pub with George Kirkwood and myself and Sonny and my son. And Sonny was griping about the fact that he brought a bunch of stuff to sell and nobody wanted to buy it. And George, in his usual gruff voice, said, "Well, if we're going to charge more than $1 for it, nobody will buy it." And I looked and I said, well, maybe the solution to that is we should be bringing things in quantities of 1s and 2s and selling them for $1 a piece. And we kind of had a chuckle about it. And then George looked up and he goes, I think there's a market for that. Why don't you do it? And we started, brainstorming. What do you need on a buckboard? You need lamps and you need capacitors, and all that stuff came out of that one lunch. I came home and I bagged a bunch of stuff. And then there was an organization problem. People would come and they'd shuffle through all the bags and they couldn't find what they wanted. So I had a buddy of mine take that piece of perf board and put 2 legs on it, and there it was.
Cool. Well, that's a great story.
That's how it was born. I've taken it to Seattle. The first time I took it to Seattle, I sold nothing. And the second time I took it to Seattle, I sold 68 bags.
Wow.
Paid for I had to repopulate it twice.
I'll be darned.
So anyway, it's just easy to stand there and spend $5.
Yeah.
So are you bringing those transistors, Bruce, for sale?
No. I thought I'd give them to Blake and then he can sell them.
I can sell them for $1 a piece, but if you want some, I'll give them to you for free.
Well, I got a lot of them. I just
If you buy, that's what I'll do. Buy 5 bags and get 6 transistors free.
No, I just want to get it out that useful for people to use. And
I'd be happy to package them and put them out there for people to get. And
sure.
I give some of those bags away anyway. And people come up and they need one item and all they got is a $20 bill. It's like,
Yeah.
So that's the key, is bring $20 bills.
yeah, bring $20 bills and ask me if you can buy one bag. But if you don't get there right away, I might have $19 change for you.
God, you know, I need to pay some for some drugs up there in the chemo thing. $7. Well, I had 6 months.
Oh no.
You know, who has cash anymore? I spent my last 20 on a haircut, you know, and I hadn't been back to an ATM. God, it's all debit card and credit card anymore.
Or tap your phone or.
Yeah. Yeah, you just do it online. Incredible.
You know
Anyway.
me, if somebody needs something and I've got it, I'm more than happy to help you.
Yeah, I've been doing that for some time. But I'm looking now, you know, I may have a few years left, but let's get it to places. I've been meaning to do this for a long time where people can use it.
I'm saving these for Christian.
Okay.
I think I already had some of those.
I've got one here special I saved for you. It's a brand new one. But it's got a little tiny burn mark in it where somebody took it out with a soldering iron.
Yeah, I've used a capacitor like that before and I had to replace it.
Yeah, well, I am replacing
And
this one because I'm pretty sure it's not going to work. So
And it took
somebody
me
else
too
put it in.
long. It took me too long. It was an input capacitor on the circuit board that somebody built as new, and I didn't know why it didn't work. So it took me quite a while to find it, and then they had burnt that capacitor, and that was it.
Yeah, this one came out of a project I'm working on that I would describe the workmanship on the chassis here as brain surgery with a chainsaw.
That's too
It's
bad.
been- it is, because this is somebody is going to pay another individual a lot of money for the restoration on this project, and they brought it over to me because they couldn't get it to work, and it was just like, oh my goodness, you know,
Those are tough.
yeah,
Oh,
they are, but you know, I like this individual. I don't want to see anybody get hurt, so I'm gonna.
Did
I'm
you
gonna do
turn
it.
on the charity light? You have a charity light?
Yeah, I've got about 16 of them here.
Yep.
I just, you know, somebody. It's I don't know. Maybe it's an engineering thing, but it bothers me when somebody has put their faith in another person has tried to do a good job, but just didn't. And you want to try and be equitable with everybody, but at the same time, you usually take a bath when you do it.
yeah.
Shelby, I do a lot of that kind of stuff, but it's fun.
It's always more work to follow a technician, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's even worse following a non-technician.
Oh,
Hey, Blake.
Yeah.
I've got I don't know if it's a technical question or not, but I got a question for you. See if you can answer this one. I was working on my tube preamp, and the heater to cathode voltage, the resistor divider to bring those closer together, to bring that heater near the cathode voltage, had failed. So the cathode was floating basically at ground. Like the cathode of the cathode follower was running about 170 volts. And I went ahead and replaced the resistor. The question isn't how to troubleshoot or anything else, but the question is that it changed the sound. Why? And by the way, I do not have the answer. Otherwise I wouldn't be asking the question. It's not a trick question. I don't know the answer. tried to look it up online. I couldn't find it anywhere.
Well, I'm not an audio guy, so I don't know that I would have an answer for you, but let's think about it.
Yeah.
Cathode is going to control what?
It's a simple, it's a 12AU7. First stage is a voltage amplifier inverted. Then the second half of it is just a direct coupled cathode follower.
Is it going to change the gain?
Does not change the gain at all.
The bias.
Bill, could you,
Well, you don't bias the cathode, but
So you said that the heater voltage was where?
The heater voltage is basically customarily in these things with the cathode follower or whatever they bring the heater voltage up closer to the cathode, because there is a heater to cathode spec that you don't want to exceed.
Yeah, so the heater's usually biased around ground.
Right. And in
Yeah.
this, but it's very common in audio gear to change that, bring that voltage up with a little divider and bring it up 30 to 50 volts.
what kind of resistor did you use, Bill? Did you use like a metal film resistor or something like that that may have, induced some inductance into your circuit?
I did use a metal film.
What if you just used a straight carbon composite?
So the resistor you're talking about is the cathode resistor or
Yeah,
the heater bias resistor?
No, not changing the cathode at all. It's from the B plus to ground. There's a voltage divider. In this case, it's a 910K resistor and a 91K resistor. So about 11 to 1 divider.
okay.
And anyway, and the starting voltage on the plate is about 370 volts.
Okay.
So if your lower resistor open, you'd have a high bias on heater.
Yeah.
The problem is it was the upper resistor that opened.
Okay, so it went down to ground.
Correct.
910. That would raise.
I don't understand though is why it changed the sound.
How did it change the sound?
It changed it to a little bit harder sound. With the resistor open, it was a little bit of a softer sound. It was clearly audibly different.
I'm thinking you've got a heater to cathode partial short. Because I wouldn't expect 30 volts heater to cathode to do anything.
No, it's 100. It starts out at about 165 to 170 minus the 34. So that's about 130 volt difference. And then with the signal, you can get 160 or 70. 12AU7 on the RCA manual, they spec the heater to cathode voltage at 200 volts.
So the cathode's up at what voltage?
About 170.
Oh, wow, that's way up there.
Yeah.
Usually for an in. So your input has got to be way up there.
What's that?
So you're biasing the grid way up there?
Because it's a direct coupled one off of the plate of the previous stage.
Oh, okay. This is the second stage then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. With that kind of voltage, you might be having some leakage. Basically, the cathode's a plate and the heater's a cathode at those temperatures, and you're starting to get into emission between the heater and the cathode.
Well, that's why I thought they had the spec of heater to cathode voltage anyway.
That's why they got it.
And I'm within the spec, but
because
what was happening was
but within the spec, you're going to change the characteristics of the output of the tube within that spec. What I'm curious about is with that 910K open, did it change your plate voltage any?
No, it didn't.
Okay. Because that would certainly account for harsher sound if your plate voltage was significantly higher or lower, higher in this case.
Yeah,
Well,
all the
there's
power
some-
supplies are regulated, filaments are regulated, the B plus is regulated. So everything's pretty stable and all that, but it just,
But you said you had a voltage divider between B plus and
correct. For
if
that
if that
filament,
opens up, that should cause the plate to float a little bit higher.
it did not.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm just a little puzzled. I tried to look it up online to see if anybody else had any tips on it. And there's a few other people I read that they made the same comment that they observed that it did change the sound. But I couldn't find anybody that tried to offer an explanation. And I thought, well, we've got a bunch of smart people out here.
Be interesting to put a tone into it and look at it with a scope.
Yeah.
And see what characteristics change.
Yeah, I would say that, you're up near the max spec to begin with. And does that tube meet that max spec? In other words, it may be only good for 130 volts heater cathode.
I've thought about that. I tried several different tubes. So
Oh, no, still, huh? Okay,
yeah, they may all be bad, but
I doubt it.
it's I thought it was interesting. I thought it's pretty high. It's the highest cathode voltage that I've run across on an audio tube.
12AU7, right?
Yep.
That should be put on a curve tracer and tested that way.
Well, following that up, do you think you could have like a leakage between the pins? Where you're soldered in and stuff like that, that maybe you got a little bit of contamination underneath there and you just need to run over some IPA and try to clean around that?
I've been in Bill's shop. There's not a speck of dust.
No, I mean, when he repaired it, right? He had to go in there with the soldering gun.
These are brand new sockets, and they're very high quality sockets. So it's not likely they're breaking down. But the problem is that when it was at the higher voltage, on occasion, the tube would flash over. And I was getting an arc. It actually blew one of my tweeters, by the way, but I did repair that, of course. But it was just kind of an interesting, an interesting process here.
Yeah.
But I'll have to give that one some thought on the difference in the tubes. And even though I've tried 3 or 4 tubes, maybe I should try 3 or 4 more. I've got a few.
Change the brand. Try a different brand.
I did try different brands.
Okay. Bingo.
I don't have very many matched pairs, but I'm not really caught up on being a matched pair for these things. But
You're looking for matched pair 12AU7s?
right.
I bet I could probably try. How many?
What's that?
I asked a really dumb question. I said, how many? It's a matched pair, probably 2.
Yes, a pair is 2.
Oh, not
Able
the
to-
trial
able to
being
come up with
matched.
some, I think I've got some RCA 12AU7s over here that are matched.
And the triode.
Yeah, they're
Dual
pretty
triode.
basic dual triode, very low mu, and nothing real spectacular special about them, but they're rock solid stable tubes for most applications. And it does have a higher HK heater to cathode voltage than a lot of the other tubes.
Let me walk over and see how many 12AU7s I've got that I can test to see if I can find you a match set.
Ooh, cool. Anyway, it was just a little observation I've made recently on my home stereo system, and I thought I would just throw that out. So appreciate you guys thinking about it.
Mhm.
Well, when you say it's harsher, it means that you have probably more higher frequency components into your sound, right? So
The usual tests I do, the only test I really do on my system is occasionally I sweep it, just using software to run just a 20 to 20,000 hertz, and I put a mic on it and look at the output. And there's nothing. The change is not enough to be visible with a sweep using a software spectrum analyzer, so it doesn't show there. So
wow.
the ears can detect the smallest little,
Exactly.
it's amazing.
It is amazing. And it's really annoying sometimes.
So it looks like Mark's dressed for the weather.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna have to get dressed for the weather here. Have you heard?
I heard it was about 100 or something.
Well, this weekend's supposed to get up to 106 or 7.
Oh, we don't do
They
that.
re-upped that. It's 114
Oh.
And
on
Portland,
Wow.
Sunday.
I
That's
don't
what
know.
I
don't do
saw on
that.
my weather. My weather report said it was up to 114 on Sunday.
Wow. No, that doesn't happen here.
no,
about low 90s is about the maximum normally. And I got a cabin down at Ocean View. I was just down there, and it's like it's all summer long. It gets down below 60 at night.
oh,
Yeah,
Freezing.
when I used to live there, it rained and it got down to 70.
Yeah. Well, the cabin's down at 3,000, a little over 3,000 foot elevation in the south end of the island. And
Yeah, I lived in the Kula so
but
What's the ocean temperature there?
probably, I haven't measured it lately. It's in low 80s. Probably 79 low or 81, 80, something like that.
depends on if it's on the surface or you dive down to 30
Yeah.
feet, it's cold.
We have a pool here, and this time of year, well, it's been actually kind of rainy and cloudier than usual, so I had to turn the solar heat back on, but because it was down to 83 without any assisted heating other than the sun hitting it for a few hours a day. And but usually the pool will be 85-ish. We got a lot of concrete around it though, so it gets pretty toasty back there.
Do you have a saltwater pool or chlorinated?
It's chlorinated.
Yeah.
And the saltwater ones are just it's not salt water like the ocean. It's just a little saltier than what is normal, and then they use a electronic method to separate the chlorine ions out, disinfect the water, and then it recombines, and so it doesn't really seem like salt water.
Hey, Bill Holman, are you going to sell your Zenith tombstone?
I'm not sure. Probably not worth enough to sell. It's kind of a pretty radio. So I was hoping it had a little bit more value, but I at this point, probably not. I've got a bunch of other old wooden radios though that I will be selling. So
Are you going to bring him to the July 24th picnic?
I'll have to think about that. I might.
Okay, because the tables are free.
Well, I have got so much equipment I've got to get rid of here before long. I've been collecting too much for too long. So gotta thin the herd.
Pat's got room in his garage.
That's not what he was telling me.
I'll have room for one more radio, right?
And
just
Franklin,
one.
yeah, he's got lots of room too.
All right, Bill, I'm back with my tubes in hand.
Ah,
I've got pairs of GEs, pairs of RCAs, pairs of Sylvanias, and a pair that's marked match pair of Zeniths. Which do you like?
oh, well, let's see.
I have more GEs than I have of anything else, but I've got pairs of, like I said, Sylvania, RCA, and Zenith as well.
Well, I would say the RCA and the Zenith sound very interesting. But the G is, well, it wouldn't hurt to try a pair of the GEs.
All right,
So,
I'll hook you up. I'll bring them with me. It's
Thank
going to
you.
cost you. It's going to cost you though. You're going to have to call me before the picnic to remind me I'm supposed to bring them.
yeah.
Oh, that's a challenge. So,
I'll
Yeah.
put them in a place where I should remember them, but
That's why you got these.
yeah.
If you can remember to bring that.
watch out. I'll remember it along with the termination here. So
Excellent. Excellent. I think we both got trading stock.
no, mine's not for trade. I'm giving you mine. So
Well, I'm giving you mine too. It's just got to make it sound good.
yeah, what the heck? Yes, very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
But anyways, if anybody does think, I'm sure you're going to go home and get or go away from here, giving this lots of thought about the sonic characteristics of the heater to cathode voltage, and so. But if somebody happens to stumble into that somewhere, you read about it or you think of what might be causing it, I'd welcome any input on that.
So I'm going to put one on the 570 curve tracer at the museum and see what I can find.
Cool.
And what I did just recently was take an oscilloscope camera and modify it so that I could just set my poke and shoot camera in place and easily take a picture, rather than trying to, you've always got it rotated or out of focus because you moved it at the wrong time. And the other thing I want to do is take like a 201 and look at that with normal DC heater voltage and its curves, and then apply an AC current onto the heaters and heater, rather, the cathode, and see what happens.
Is there a cathode in 201?
Well, not a separate cathode, it's the heater cathode.
Okay. I'd expect it to be noisy as all get out.
Yeah. Well, I might actually take a movie of that.
But there's only 6.3 volts on that 12AU7 heater, right?
12AU7 per
12
heater
volts.
is 6 volts, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking a 201, which is a filament, okay? And basically the filament with AC on it, it's changing the bias characteristics of the tube, depending upon the line voltage, or the filament voltage, and the filament voltage is varying. So basically cutoff is moving around dynamically. We'll have a movie and pictures to show what happens.
So what controls that?
Well, the curve tracer steps the grid voltage, and you can see the characteristic curves across the screen. Kind of like what I showed before on that comparison between the triode and the pentode. Anyway, the characteristic curves are displayed of the vacuum tube at different grid voltages and plate voltages, and shows the current distributions. In other words, you start with zero bias and then sweep the plate voltage. The current typically in a triode goes up exponentially. With plate voltage, the current goes up. Now, if you step the grid negative, that steps down. So you've got a lower curve with the plate voltage, and so on and so forth, down lower. So it shows the plate current at varying B+ voltages at different grid voltages. So you have a set of curves that you can see. Dynamic.
Is there a frequency tested also?
No. This is all done at 120 hertz.
Okay.
Line voltage is actually driving the plate voltage, so that's what's sweeping the horizontal plate voltage. And it's all transformer coupled, so you can change that voltage all over the map. What I'd like to do someday is get some of those very, very early tubes, Edison tubes and what have you, and put that on the curve tracer and see what they actually look like. But so far, I haven't found anybody with one they wanted to loan me.
What year are those made?
Those early ones are 20s or earlier.
Well, I don't know what I'd have that you'd be interested in, but you're welcome to anything I have here. You know, I've got a 200A and a 201. Or sorry, a UV 200 and UV 201.
Well, I've got 201s I'm gonna play with.
You know, I've got some Kellogg's over here. Is the AC type 201s. It might be fun to play with.
Huh. How do they do that? They have a cap.
They actually have 2 caps on top of the tube to hook up the. You'd line all the tubes up, and then you'd run a hard line across and put them all in parallel, and they ran on AC 5 volts.
So they had a cathode then instead of filaments?
No, they just had AC. They had still a 4-pin tube. I wouldn't be the one to ask about that, but I know the Kellogg tubes had your grid connections were on the top. So it still had 4 pins in the bottom. I don't know if all 4 of them were populated. I suspect you had plate and grid, and then your AC connections were on the top of the tube.
I'll be darned. Huh.
You got those somewhere.
What years were those produced?
Late 20s.
Oh, late
Yeah.
20s, really?
Yeah, it allowed you to use a 201 radio that used 201s or 01As. Allowed you to use them with an AC supply once AC came through, and you wouldn't have to buy the A battery anymore.
Okay.
So you just bought a deep B batteries, right? So you had to still have them.
Yeah. Now, they really, I don't think they were that popular because most people just went and bought an AB or an ABC power supply and ran with it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've got about 24 tubes up here, all 12 AU7s. I'll bet I find some that are matched.
Very cool.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pin 6. And I'm looking to see where the 0.05 goes. And of course, there is no 0.05.
One other interesting thing that I've run across recently in that same preamp is that somebody had basically totally reconditioned it, put new parts in and all new fancy caps and stuff. And then one of the things that seems pretty customary is they changed the rectifiers out from the 1N4007 to they put those Fred diodes in there. And what happened here was it turns out that was causing a bit of a problem because the transformer, the output of the transformer and the rectifier filter, the output voltage was actually about 380 volts, feeding a regulator. Is basically a pre-regulator, and that feeds 3 other regulators that are the actual regulators that feed each individual circuit in the preamp. But the Fred diodes were causing enough forward voltage drop that it would it was below the threshold of the first stage regulator. So that was bouncing around, not doing any regulation at all. And the schematic I had, of course, was pretty crude, no values, no nothing in it. And it took me a while to realize what I'd have to look up values. They use a string of diodes for the regulation, then a couple of different pass transistors in each one of the stages. In the 3 lower stages, or the secondary stages, they have 10 each 34 volt Zehners. And in the pre-regulator, they have 11 of them.
Well,
And I didn't recognize that in the schematic that it was 11. And it took me a while to figure out what the voltage was supposed to be. That was just that much, basically 30 volts or so more than the previous stages. And it was only getting about 10 volts more. So I don't know who's used Fred diodes before, but I never have. And but my first experience with them was disappointing.
so what are
What
they?
kind of diodes again?
Fred, FRED, that's fast recovery, something diode.
Okay.
So it's a common thing. If you look at least audio gear, when they talk about reconditioning, almost everybody says one of the first things you do is change out the standard rectifiers and put in these Fred diodes. But I never have, and I'm still not real inclined to do it after this, but somebody had done that and caused some problems within the unit.
I don't know why a Fred diode would have a higher voltage drop though.
I don't know what they customarily run, but this one does.
I've got some very high speed diodes and the forward drop just isn't all that different.
Oh.
They're just more expensive.
Well, these are the original diodes were 1 in 4,007s, and that's what I put back in it.
Yeah.
And
That's
so they're only 1 amp diodes, and the Freds are rated at 12 amps. So they're beefy enough, but and everything was working except for the fact that voltage was low. I just thought it was an interesting
what
thing.
were
I
they
don't know.
trying to achieve by changing those?
Well, the faster diode would probably have less noise on turn off.
That's what everybody claims. They say that the difference is audible in this equipment, but
So when you turn a diode off,
Yeah.
you can't immediately turn it off. It wants to
Yeah.
suck current backwards momentarily because of gate charge. And anyway, the high-speed diodes, they fix that. I can't remember how they do it now.
But
I
if
use
you
those.
have, yeah, okay, but if your power supply is that if the noise and ripples, if it puts out is below audibility, then what are you gonna gain?
No, the snap off of the diode is very high frequency. It's just a little pulse as it's disconnecting, but a high frequency pulse.
Yeah.
And typically, well, a lot of times, if you look at the rectifier circuit in some of those, they have an RC across the diode.
Yeah.
And that's to quiet it down. That's
Okay,
to
yeah,
that's to try and quiet down that snap off
yeah,
using a standard diode. Now, if you use a high-speed diode, that's not as critical because the snap off is so ultimately fast and short duration. You'd
it's
never
even
hear.
higher frequency.
Well, you can't hear a megahertz.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And wouldn't some form of adding a capacitor to ground work?
Now you need
Far
to
as-
dampen it, and so there's an RC across the diode. There's already a capacitor to ground.
Yeah.
But the capacitor to ground, still doesn't take all that high-speed current out.
That's similar to like the diodes in a microwave. I mean, they're hooked right to a big capacitor and then to ground kind of thing.
Mhm.
But would it matter in a microwave?
No.
Because you have a huge amount of voltage that drops back, right?
Yeah.
50,000 volts or something like that.
Depends on what you're heating up in your microwave.
Popcorn, right?
Aluminum foil.
I made the mistake of putting a couple of neon bulbs in the back of ours, just laying in there when the wife went to use it. Oh,
so what?
It's
Tell
a
us
very-
about it. What
it's
do
a
they
very,
do?
it's a very cute, bright display flickering back there that the wife gets very upset about.
I'll be darned. Very
I
cute.
just cut the leads about a ½ inch long and spread them out a little, and then just stick them in the back of the microwave while you're cooking something. you'll definitely see that there's microwaves in there.
By the way, Bruce, your original thing you were talking about with those, with the isolation transformer.
Yeah.
And I know with that email dialogue went back and forth with Sonny and others.
Right.
It sounded like there's several people in the group, not in this group here, but in the club that do not understand that. And that's really pretty important if they're going to be doing any work on that stuff.
Yeah, I was hoping more of them would be on this.
Yeah,
Well, they can look at the recording.
I
on
hope they
YouTube.
do, or hope we get the word out, because that's a pretty big safety issue, and it's a pretty significant troubleshooting aid if they don't understand it. So
Mhm.
I thought you described it pretty nicely, and I think that would be
Good,
very
thank
helpful.
you. Yeah, I wish I had time to make up some slides and stuff.
Yeah, I think
But,
probably most of the people in this group, I would think probably everybody in this group here probably do understand that, but I'm pretty sure there's quite a few club members that don't. So,
Yeah, I had quite a number of isolation transformers I was trying to give away, but that was a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. I finally tossed them. They were fairly big toroids,
mhm.
and they weren't in a box or anything. But I thought they were real valuable, so I saved them from the dumpster at work. But I couldn't give them away free.
I'm pretty sure I got one of those.
Oh, okay. They were, as I recall, only good for about 300 watts, but hey, for most radios, you're in good shape. Maybe some TVs would have a little issue.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I picked one of those up. So I got that out there with my stack of transformers. So
And I think it had double primaries and secondaries,
yeah,
which are basically identical. So you could make it 110 to 220 or 220 to 110.
yep. In fact, I'm sure I got it now.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got one of them. So
Hey, Bruce, what about a hands-on training course? Does Tektronix have a bunch of scopes available in the classroom setting? Where we could get maybe like 5 or 7 people to show up and each have their own scope. I'm talking about people who don't normally have one or don't know how to properly use one.
Well, you know, we have a lending library. That lending library's got scopes, power supplies, multimeters, signal generators that you can check out.
Well, that wouldn't do me much good on the scopes because I wouldn't know what to do with it. So I was wondering about like training class, if we could maybe get someone to train us on the proper use of a scope.
Yeah, we could do that.
Could we do it at Keytronics or Tektronix, I'm sorry?
Yeah, sometime in the future, when things open up, yeah.
we could do it in your garage.
There's no room in my garage. I still have a bunch of junk in it.
How many people do you think would come to it?
I don't know, I'm shooting for 5 to 10, but
Oh, well,
how many, what?
conference rooms probably good for 12.
12? Well, you'd have to set a limit. In other words, how much equipment would you have? And then how big of a classroom do you think you could have before it became too cumbersome?
Well, I think 12 would work.
What happens if people wanted to bring their own equipment, like if they had bought the scope? I mean, we've had many auctions where scopes have been for sale, and I think they've gone for as little as $5.
Yeah, I got a bunch from the school that we sold a couple of years ago. Excess scopes. And along with a bunch of other parts that I didn't want to see go under the dump. I should have collected more.
Well, I'm willing to go out there with maybe Franklin's help and set up a training thing where we ask how many people would like to participate in the class? Basic scope understanding and usage, safety features, whatnot. I mean, what do you think, Franklin?
I think it's a great idea. I'd love to be involved in it too.
Okay. Bruce, when do you think Tektronix might be open? Are we looking at 2022 or maybe possibly 2021?
September.
Oh, that's just right around the corner.
It's getting there.
Pat, on
Yo.
something like this thing with the scope, couldn't you just do that at the one of the Saturday meets, just to have it after the standard meet? There's going to be an extra hour and a half or 2 hours of training.
Sure. That's a great idea, because that way they wouldn't have to go to 2 different spots. They can just show up at a regular meeting and then have the training right there.
It would be a really important tech talk, I think, a safety tech talk, right? So that would be really good to, run around to do that again, as well as maybe have time afterwards or something like that.
Who's got a nice isolation they can bring? Mine's too big and heavy.
I got a little one. I can show it to you next Wednesday and see if it's worth taking.
Well, in July, we have a Zoom meeting and then we have the picnic. So we have 2 dates in July. So July would not work.
Right. So it'd have to be the next month.
August, we have the car show on the 7th. We have an in-person meeting at the Grange on the 14th. And then we have the PSARA NWVRS August swap meet on the following week, which would be the 24th. So August 14th would work.
Let's see. I'm still in the middle of my chemo. I don't know how I'll be. But somebody like Lyles, I think, could do it too. Where is Lyles?
Is he on today?
No. I'm sure Blake can too.
Okay, what we can do is take this offline and figure out, what kind of classes. Would the first one be like an introduction, or safety for, we'll just have to figure it out. How's that sound? We'll take it off, discussion offline.
We do have some interesting stuff at the museum. We've got a naked CRT that you can actually see inside, that puts up a display that actually shows the raw deflection plates. You can actually visually see them. And that's a good demonstration on how the CRT and the oscilloscope works. And then there's other demonstrations in there. Well, like the theremin, which you guys used at OMSI, that displays up onto the CRT, along with a microphone, a keyboard, and a guitar that you can pluck and pick and look at the visual pattern of those sound waves, which is kind of a start. Anyway, there's several different things there that can be displayed and shown and described that would get you into really how an oscilloscope works and what it does. And then we could have something where, at Abernathy, where you actually show how to use one. Different controls and.
Okay, so you're thinking maybe one at Tektronix as an intro, and we're talking very, very basic, an intro. And that could be done not on a second Saturday of the month, so it doesn't conflict
Right.
with our meeting, and then second Saturday of the month, actual hands-on usage of one, providing they, well, maybe a prerequisite would be that they show up for the intro class if they have like myself, who has absolutely no idea.
You know, it's nice to be hands-on, but one could make a slideshow also. And there's plenty of stuff up on the web that shows how an oscilloscope works.
So for the intro class at Tektronix, you're thinking maybe September? Well, Bruce, why don't you think
Yeah.
about it and get back to us and let everyone know what dates, because it could be on any day after work or Saturday or Sunday. So
Yeah.
why don't you get back to us and let us know?
I'm gonna have to play this by ear for a little bit to see how I respond to all this stuff, but
You bet, that's most important.
my last chemo is on September 1st. So it may be middle of September. That's a ways away though. And depending on how things go, you know, we might be able to do this earlier. Right now, I'm just fine. I'm waiting for the hammer to fall tomorrow morning. And then I don't know how long it's going to hang on.
Okay, thanks.
I'm hoping 2 or 3 days and I'll get back with my life. I don't know.
So Bruce, how do you identify those early Edison bulbs or tubes?
Usually they're round, a little bit smaller than a baseball.
Well, like those, they call them baseball tubes or baseball, you know.
Anyway, they have a grid that's just a piece of wire that goes, yep.
A zigzag like?
What's that?
Or like a zigzag? It
Yeah.
zigzags?
Yeah. It's not a fine grid pattern. It's just this kind of a whip. Looks very transparent, I would think, to the electron beam.
I saw an early one that was a round tube with it was a photocell tube, a round one like that. What did they use that for?
I don't know, other than
You don't know, huh? 4-pin?
photocell, huh?
Yeah, it said photocell on it.
No,
Which is
maybe they
good.
were controlling cat doors or dog doors.
Some light or something came in. Because those are early, I mean, they detect light, right? That's what they do, right? Just like a solid state photocell.
Oh, look at Bill. He's got a piece of equipment there. Is that a battery charger?
It is.
Yeah, with a Tungar bulb.
Yep.
You need another one?
I just think this thing is cool.
Oh, yeah.
That is so cool.
I like that fuse. Looks like a bottle cap from this angle.
Geez, it is a bottle cap. Oh, no, actually.
I've heard of people putting pennies in fuse sockets, but not bottle caps. And from the side, it just looks like a bottle cap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, folks, I've got company. It's Wednesday night and it's 8:30, so I'm gonna boogie.
Okay. Take care there.
Thanks, Blake.
Sorry to take Blake away from you guys.
John says hi.
Hello.
We'll get over
All
here
right.
with it. See you. There we go.
Be joining you more often when my life slows down after a big move, maybe.
Well, you come and bug him all the time, huh?
He doesn't bug me. He visits.
He visits. Okay. Good enough. Good friends, anyway. Hey,
Yes, a lot of good ones this evening. See you guys a little later. Take care.
Okay.
Stay cool this weekend.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
and stay safe this weekend. Get out of that heat. It's gonna be hot enough, it can hurt you.
Oh yeah, well, I got air conditioning in the garage, so I'm good.
I'm
Just
gonna
don't
look
open the garage door.
I've got
I'm
them.
looking for something here.
Anyway, thanks, everybody. I'm dropping
off.
off too. Okay, bye now.
I think it'll disappear too.
Yeah, I was gonna find my tongue bulb, but it's buried somewhere.
Hey,
That's
Bruce,
ahead.
on that early Edison tube, would it have a glass nipple at the top?
Yeah. They typically had leads at the bottom and leads at the top. Sometimes they had a little screw base, but they had leads on the other end. A lot of them just had 4 leads coming out. Typically 2 on each end.
When you say leads, is it just a wire or is it like
Usually insulated wires.
insulated wires? Yeah, because I think I saw Esteban, he had a bunch of tubes and they were really odd old things. And they
Uh-huh.
didn't have any base. They just had 4 wires coming out of the bottom, just
Okay.
wires.
Yeah, that's probably one of the early ones.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll tell him because he didn't know what he had and he wasn't sure either. And I looked and he goes, wow, that's really weird looking.
And if you look inside, you can, they're usually clear enough. You can see the grid in between the heater and the plate. And it's usually just a very, very simple heater.
And would be in the 1910s or 1915, something like that.
Yeah, 1900 to 1920.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. I'll go talk to him, see if he still has those.
Yeah. Well, there's collectors out there that'll probably give their left nut for it.
Have you seen any interesting ways of displaying those tubes?
I've seen several on the internet, displays of tubes. If anyone ever gets the inkling to go clear up to Bellingham, Washington, damn near the Canadian border, the Spark Museum there is a real, you want to see it. You want to see it. Take the trip, even if you got to stay in a hotel room, because it's like a 5-hour drive up there. And you got to check when they're open. Best bet is to get there or visit on Saturday when they have the display in the Tesla coils. They got monster Tesla coils there. I happened to be there on a Wednesday, but they had a busload of kids there from the school. And they actually had lunch in the auditorium there. And anyway, they fired that thing up, and it's incredible. Plays music with it. And, some of you may have seen Don Anderson. He's had shows in his backyard and at OMZ. He's got some pretty big units also, but he's got radios, TVs. He's got the Titanic radio room set up, very original looking. He's got big displays of tubes. I mean, thousands of tubes. Anyway, the curator there, oh, phooey. Right now his name went away. Winters, Jack Winters. I think it was Jack Winters. Anyway, he gave me a pretty big personal tour. Then he had a Tektronix spectrum analyzer that didn't work. So I took it home and fixed it, got it back to him. a little tit for tat, you know. But no, that's a really, you don't want to miss that museum. It's fantastic. It's not quite like the Tektronix Museum where almost everything works and you can display it. A lot of the radios and TVs there don't actually work, but they're cleaned up and really look nice. Anyway, I think I'll dive off here and get some things done. I didn't get
Thanks so much,
done.
Bruce.
I didn't get much done today. Well, I did, but nothing I wanted to get done. Catch you guys later.
Okay.
Bye.
See you later.
See you.
How you doing, Warren?
Oh, pretty good. I just sit here and glean all the information you fellas have. I can't offer much in that way for you. I enjoy the radios though,
Yeah.
and the conversation very much. Thank you.
And how you doing, Franklin?
Good, good.
Yeah.
I see
I'm-
Warren's
I'm
got a
gonna-
different background.
What's that?
Oh, that's my wife's computer tonight.
Oh, I see.
I was gonna dive out here too, but I thought I'd say hi anyway, so.
Yeah,
I'll
me
have to-
too. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you there, Pat? I guess I'll have to find the recording and look at the beginning part that I missed there, so.
No, I missed last week because we had a lot of work to do around the place, got the family visiting, and so busy doing stuff.
That recording is very nice because I missed the last meeting and to be able to see it wasn't great.
I'm glad you appreciate it.
Yeah.
It does take me a while to get it up there.
Yeah,
Oh, I was thinking of what was it on the meeting?
For the live stream meeting, yeah. I think I
Yeah.
got that figured out.
Oh, okay,
So-
yeah,
so you
'cause
guys
you
can talk?
probably looked at the recording and saw the problems probably.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But I want to get the audio. I get the audio figured out first, and I think
Yeah.
I got it figured out. I'm going to use a Bluetooth speaker, and the problem is when I had the auxiliary speaker hooked up into a different phone, it got a horrible feedback, and yeah, I don't know if you. I mean, we were hearing it terrible in there. So if
Yeah.
I figured if I'm going to use a phone instead of my iPad, and use that, and then I'm going to use a Bluetooth speaker from the Apple TV to the Bluetooth speaker. So that should be fine. And then you guys should be able to hear both. And then I'm also going to, with the phone, I can use a gimbal. So that a lot of the video will be better where it doesn't bounce around so much and
Yeah.
stuff. Any other suggestions you have?
Well, I don't know. I just remember I couldn't even remember what the problems were. I just remembered there were some problems from the meeting, but it was neat that we could be there. But
Hey, Franklin, are you gonna be at the picnic? Why can't we try it then?
Yeah, I can do it at the picnic. We can do another one at the picnic where we just can't use the projector. I mean, that's not going to work. So what we'll do is we'll just do a live Zoom, and then I'll have the iPad there. So you guys will be on an iPad if anybody wants to see you. But we can't use a projector because it'd be outside, of course. It's not going to.
Right,
not gonna
right.
work with
But if
that.
we can get the sound taken care of. So Mark, do you think you might be available on July 24th? I mean, not for the whole thing, but just like to show up and try the sound system out?
send me an email to remind me.
Okay,
I'm sure
I'm
people
not
will be
sure what's
talking
going
about
on
it
then,
online.
but sorry, what's that, Franklin?
I'm sure they will be talking about it on the forum.
Yeah,
But yeah.
but it's neat because it's a little hard to fly over there, and in the middle of winter, it's probably a little hard for Warren to drive down too. So
Hey, is there something wrong with calling those black beauties? I noticed they changed it to X and Y capacitors on the forum. Is that
I thought they were okay. Maybe I'm mistaken. I was thinking that was the X and Y were something different.
oh really?
Uh,
Because we were talking about black beauties, right? I mean, that's what the whole conversation was about.
Yeah, those bumblebee or black beauties.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's because that's what color they were. Oh,
And that's what people call them, even though I know it's a nickname for it. But anyway, I noticed that they changed it to X and Y capacitors.
I
on
thought the
the
X and
forum.
Y was like a, I'm not really up on that, but I thought that was it was a rating that it could be in an AC main circuit. And I guess we should go over that, be sure, but I thought that's what that was to do with. In fact, I think I have a bag of them here that I got surplus, and I think that they might have the X and Y on there. That's why I didn't really question it. But
Oh, really? You know, those are gold now, right?
well, no, because I think you're talking about a totally different thing.
Oh, really?
I think I think the X and Y's are modern capacitors.
So the ones that are worth those black beauties, even if they're used, people want them.
Yeah,
their-
Christian was talking about it in the last thing, because they're not running that much voltage through it, so they're using them for audio effects and stuff. So they want them because even though they're out of spec for our use in a radio, they're great for guitars and stuff like that. And
Well, yeah,
and
but
it's-
most
you're
of
gonna
them
have to
blow
watch
up.
that. What's that?
Most of them blow up and they crack.
Yeah, they were talking about it. You have to watch the last Wednesdays.
Okay.
They went into it real deep, and Christian was schooling a lot of people about it. So
Yeah, that was real good.
Okay. All right. I'll see.
right,
you guys.
Warren, you were there, weren't you, Warren?
I saw the YouTube part.
Oh, the YouTube one. Okay.
Yeah,
And so were the X and Y ones where they were talking about the old big monsters, or are you talking about something modern?
Well, the discussion last week was about Black Beauties, and
Well,
what
I
I
think
noticed.
there's a mixed discussion.
Oh, was it?
That's what. Okay, that was my impression because they're talking about those old capacitors, but I know I have some capacitors that say they're AC rated, and there are ones that are safety capacitors. They're more modern, and I thought that's what they're talking about there. Whereas the old Bumblebee ones, whatever you're going to call them, those are just plastic encapsulated wax, or they're built the same as I think the wax capacitors, where they're and they're just encapsulated in plastic instead of the wax, paper
Mhm.
housing. I think that's the only big difference, or well, that's my impression. That's the only real difference. And the thing is it's the visual. It's the when you talk about they're wanting those capacitors because they think it, maybe some are bad and they create a sound and I think, oh, that's great. And so that you got to have that. And it's also a visual thing. Well, it's got to be all original, just like the original they were intended to be.
Exactly. That's what they were talking about last week. Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's two different. I think the modern ones have, I guess I should go look in to be sure, but have are made so they won't, like they will open up instead of short, for example, if they're in across, in one type of line, and maybe short out if it's another situation. When it talks about your AC input circuitry for safety.
Oh, Christian, you're back.
Yeah,
We were
I
talking
was
about
already
that.
here. I just didn't want to hear you banging around the pots while I'm cooking the beans.
Oh, not a problem. Did you get our conversation there?
I'm gonna go look it up now.
They on the forum they changed I wrote Bumblebees capacitors on it because that's what I try to pick up something that's interesting that some people will click on the YouTube, right? So I put Bumblebees on there, but on the forum they changed them to X and Y capacitors. So I was wondering if that wasn't politically correct to call them Black Beauties or not.
Here. X capacitors are required for connections between mains or neutral. Y capacitors are required whenever there's a connection to grounded nodes. And these are modern capacitors. There's not. I think we've got two different things we're talking about here.
Oh,
Yeah,
basically-
safety capacitors, X and Y class capacitors. That's what I understood. So I wasn't. And let's see here. Now they want to do something. No, I just, go back here.
So maybe they just thought it was more interesting to talk about X and Y
Well, I
capacity.
think it
Black
got,
beauties.
because you saw those capacitors across the mains in the old radios and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, X are generally designed and used in AC line filtering in many electronic device applications. These safety capacitors are also known by their names, including EMI, RFI suppression capacitor, AC line filter, you know, and yeah, X capacitor is referred to across the line capacitor. The capacitor is placed between the line and neutral. Fails because an overcurrent event is likely to fail short. This failure in turn would cause an overcurrent protective device like a fuse or circuit breaker to open. Therefore, a capacitor failing in this fashion would not cause any electrical shocks. Okay. A Y class, known as a line to ground capacitor or bypass capacitor, fail short. This could lead to a fatal electrical shock due to the loss of the ground connection. Class Y safety capacitor is designed to fail open. See, that's what. So the X ones are designed to short if they fail, and the Ys are designed to open if they fail.
So what's a self-healing?
I think that's the self-healing thing. There's some capacitors, and I don't know. It's in their design. And I'm trying to remember this stuff that can survive where the dielectric insulator gets a little hole in it and like a little short, and maybe, and I'm guessing on this part is that if it gets a short, that it's designed so that small area can burn up and get rid of the short. I think in effect, so that it won't take the whole, destroy the whole capacitor if it's just a little puncture in the insulator,
or become part of the next piece of foil or winding.
Yeah, that could be too. You're right. It could be either way. So that's a whole different thing. See, but the X and Y ones are they're just like I say, they're designed so that maybe in their construction so that they'll fail they'll tend to, they probably don't always, but they would tend to fail either as a short or as an open if they get overloaded. And I think that's the idea on those, on the X and Y, and the X's are designed, they're supposed to short if they fail, and the Y's are supposed to open if they fail. And so and I have a bag of them somewhere that I got. Your regular caps you put in, like your typical bypass caps and stuff. Those are down, further into the circuitry, and they usually do other things like blow fuses or short transformers out, which is nothing, which is away from the input part. Where the equipment, they head in the equipment where the power's coming in, because they want it to short the trip a breaker, and that way it removes. In the case of the X capacitors, if they short out and trip your circuit breaker, then the job's done. You can't get shocked because the breaker's tripped.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that bypass the ground, you don't want them to short a hot to ground, to a ground, connection.
Yeah, you want those to be a fuse.
You want those to open up, yeah, or essentially be like a fuse or open. And so it probably costs more money to make, and also they got to test them and make sure that they do those things. So they're going to be, that it should be more expensive than say like if you want a 0.01 X capacitor at 250 volts, it's probably much more expensive to build than a 0.01 regular old bypass, cap at the same voltage.
Yeah, I come across a tremendous amount of different capacitors.
Yeah.
Made different ways.
Are those black beauty used in that way?
They might have been in the old radio, in the old radios, they didn't have, I don't know that they had this X and Y rating capacitors back then.
Mhm.
Pretty sure they didn't. And so I don't know when the Bumblebee or Black Beauties or whatever you want to call them came out, but that maybe in the 50s or something like that. I don't know if I've ever seen them in 40s radios.
Yeah, I think they were in 50s
No.
guitars,
50s,
right?
I think, is when they probably came out, and I thought it was a great idea, but it turned out that I think what happened to those is that the plastic case would crack and that moisture in, so they still fail. They're thinking like, oh, these are all sealed, you see, and
Not like wax capacitors, right? Where
yeah,
they're
well,
not really sealed.
they
right?
fail too, but
They feel, yeah.
I think that was the idea, is that they were sealed up. That the thinking was they were sealed up, and so they're not going, moisture's not going to get in there, and they're not going to deteriorate. So this is a great idea, but then they didn't anticipate that 20 years later that the cases would crack and stuff and have new problems.
Well, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, well, I had to double check, but that's my understanding of it, and I guess I was pretty much right on that. So, and it's just like the idea. Some people they want to go buy old wax capacitors because they want to put the original stuff in the radio.
They're going to fail, right?
Well, I mean, they hopefully want to find one that's still good and you know, because it's authentic. and I think I'm blanking on his first name. Walton, you know, who has his Walton. He went ahead and took those wax capacitors apart and put new components inside of them, and then sealed them back up in wax, so they looked like they were all original. Because he, you know, that was his kind of top end, you know, nice radio. And you want to keep it looking as close to stock as possible.
Yeah, I think that's done with electrolytics quite a bit, because I
Yeah.
used to.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
Used
Blake
to
does it too.
throw
He puts
away.
modern capacitors inside of a casing that makes it look like a
Yeah.
wax yellow.
I did that in Atwater. I had an Atwater Kent that actually, I think Cliff has it now. It had a kind of I call it an Art Deco kind of metal can that had multiple capacitors in it, you know, full of the tar, you know. And so I opened it up, cleared the tar out of it, and I put in the modern electrolytics inside there. And so it looks all original. You don't know that that's what's inside of it. And in the fact, it's a lot lighter than it used to be. I didn't read.
There's no wax in it.
Yeah, Mike did a tech talk about how to clear that tar out of there
Yeah.
a while back, because he was taking, you know, those apart, trying to keep it original looking when he was doing capacitors that were, or whatever he was working on that was all filled with tar.
So let's look up the Bumblebee capacitors.
It's Sprague. And then they've made more than one.
Oh yeah.
I mean, of the black Sprague, because they have an oil filled also, and just a Mylar that is not oil filled. So they made what would be called the Bumblebee in the 50s in Mylar and oil filled, and the black ones the next year they have.
You lost your eye. Okay, a variety of capacitors known as Black Beauty or Bumblebee are found in the classic tech gear that are. Now I see some Bumblebee which have the stripes on it, and then some other ones which say Black Beauty. They don't have the stripes on it. They have the lettering on them. Like Sprague had some black ones that said Sprague, the value, the voltage, and so forth. And and where the Bumblebee ones actually have the color stripes on them. So
Yeah,
I
those
suppose
are
there's
from
a difference as far
Those
as.
are from the 50s.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the 60s they came out, but they still have different ones in the 60s that are black, but they're still manufactured differently, and they have different writing on them.
And of course, I went looking that up. Of course, all the ones for sale showed up first.
Well, there's a certain value and a quality is the reason for the real valuable ones.
Well,
And the other ones
the-
are secondary.
in
and
their
those-
minds, that's the case. Because
Well, they
the
were
original,
originally,
because the
original-
original ones would have performed as a regular capacitor, equivalent to, and unless there's a slight difference in construction, and I doubt that they're really about the same. That they were going to perform like the old wax ones before them, and probably about the same as the orange drops that came out later, that replaced like the Sprague Black Beauties. You know, 0.01 tubular cap with the foil is going to perform a certain way, and I you know, it's just hype.
well, I don't believe the hype.
Yeah, I'm saying that.
I
Yeah, I'm
believe
saying
that they're,
it's hype.
I believe
Yeah.
different capacitors actually pass voltage or amps.
Well, they can, and if they have leakage, they're gonna
There's a
cause
lot of
distortion, and
functionality.
if somebody likes that, I
Different-
guess that's their thing. But it's not what the original
Well-
manufacturer did.
It's kind of like arguing with people in a 12AX7 tube, and then they say,
Oh, I
well,
know.
and it's
But-
technically functions. But once you put it in an audio purpose, and then it is what it's connected to, and it's how it's driven.
Yeah.
And if no one can hear it, I tell people, if you can't hear it, you don't need one.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that the original manufacturer did not put those in a guitar amp or whatever because it leaked, because they didn't leak when they were new, and when they were first manufactured. That was
They
never-
actually weren't popular, and that I know of, ever used in any popular modern guitar amplifier.
Okay, well, wherever they're, you know, I'm just saying.
They were
that
stuck
They
in the
never
guitar.
intended to do that.
They were stuck in the guitar itself to bleed off the high frequency to ground
Okay,
in,
yeah,
in millivolts. And that's where they were used. And
but when they were new, they
Whoever-
didn't leak.
well, a lot of it was still because I mean, Sprague was popular, Gibson bottom, they put them in, and people want to put those back in a $500,000 guitar.
Yeah, right. They want the look. It's anyway. Yeah.
Well,
Hey, I'm
that's
gonna have-
the real, that's
Yeah.
the real value.
Yeah.
Is you have a $500,000 guitar and your capacitors don't work, or someone who replaced them years before,
Yeah.
you put it back to original, and then the value goes way up, because to find good ones, or to find them, that's the other
Yeah.
deal. People are looking for them now, so there are
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
eyes out there. And then the other people that follow behind, they just mimic. You know, I don't even have to play my guitar anymore. I just have to buy those capacitors and put them in there, and that'll solve it. I don't
Yeah,
have to
I know.
practice.
Yeah.
I don't be the best dreamer, and some are willing to pay for it, or they just don't know, so they want to try them, and they got to pay the price because that's the market. So.
Yeah.
And then you do need specific values,
Yeah.
because specific values, because they're exact replacements, they're worth more money because they're a replacement visually. And then hopefully they still fall in the original range, that it's a usable capacitor. So it just goes down to they do work. I mean, I work on guitars, and a lot of it is, if you can't hear something, maybe you have an inferior something else that you can't, that whatever you put in a great tube into an amplifier, but you have something else that's inferior, it doesn't really matter. You know, you put that other tube in there because you have something that's inferior. And we are listening to characteristics and performance. I mean, there's quite a bit to transfer it from just playing a CD or actually playing the music, you know, like in a band. there's quite a bit of, things to get that sound other than just playing the CD over and over. But if you're actually playing a band, there's a lot of, potentially a lot of stuff to work out to get that sound again.
Well, anyway, hey, I've got to run here, but I guess you figured out about the X and Y thing for sure. So
Yeah.
but others know
Thanks,
you
Mark.
knew, but
The other is, it's some fool's gold and some of it's real gold.
Yeah.
You
okay.
just have to learn how to find the real gold.
Yeah.
It's
Bye, Mark.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll see you
we'll
guys
go
later.
back out to-
See y'all.
Yeah.
Oh, Mark, I bought an aloe vera plant. I know you like those, right? Grow like weeds.
Yeah, they are weeds. So
Yeah. So are poinsettias.
what's that?
Yeah, I bought an aloe vera plant and it reminded me of Hawaii.
Oh.
I did